In this video I'm going to be talking about margin and padding, including collapsing margins and the problems collapsing margins create. So let's get started. I'm going to create a box on the screen. So dot my box. Give it some styling. Dot my box. Height. Make it 100 pixels. And width. Make that 100 pixels as well. So it's a square box. I'll give it a background color. Color of red. There we are. And you can see there's some margin around it. This is the default margin that comes with the browser. I can get over this by setting margin to 0 on the body element. So body margin 0. And now it's gone. Now there is no margin around the box, and setting the body margin to 0 means we have a starting point for setting our own margins. It also means we have set a consistent value that should be the same on all browsers. If I now set the margin to 10 pixels, it looks more or less the same as we had before, but now I know how much margin I have and I have control over it. If I set the margin back to 0, it goes away, of course. And if I set just margin top and make that 100 px, I get 100 pixels at the top and 0 on all the other sides. If I create margin left 50 pixels, I get 50 pixels on the left. I'm going to create another box . Call this box 2. Create some styling. And height is 100 pixels. Width is 100 pixels. Background color is pink. And now I can create margin bottom and make that 100 pixels as well. So now we got 100 pixels at the top, 100 pixels at the bottom, 50 px on the left hand side and nothing on the right hand side. I could also do margin right 50 pixels, but you won't be able to see it. I could though create the margin top, left, right and bottom all in one line. I'll comment this out. And what I could do is go margin. It goes in a clockwise direction, so the margin top would be at the first 100 px, and then the right margin right will be 50 pixels, and then the next one is margin bottom, that's 100 pixels, and then the left is 50 pixels as well. And if I save that, I've got the same thing. So that is the same as this. If I just have 3 values, it'll take the 50 pixels to be both left and right. And if I reduce this to just 2 values, it'll take the first value to be top and bottom and the second value to be left and right. So you'll have 100 pixels top and bottom and 50 pixels left and right. And if I reduce it to just 1 value, then I have 100 pixels all around. I'll put these values back. 50 pixels, 100 pixels, and 50 pixels. I can control each one. So if I set that to 25 pixels, the left hand side goes to just 25 pixels. Or this one to 50 pixels. Now I've got 50 pixels at the bottom. Make this one 25 pixels. You won't be able to see this one because there's nothing on the right hand side. Put that back. And this one will be the top, so if we reduce that to 50 pixels, I only get 50 pixels at the top. Put it back. So the values go clockwise. You have 100 pixels for the top, 50 pixels for the right, 100 pixels for the bottom, and 50 pixels for the left. So margin causes space on the outside of the box. If I want space on the inside of the box, then we use padding. So if I set here in box 2 padding of 100 pixels, I get a bigger box because the box expands for the padding. I can do a similar thing to what I did here with margin, but I can do it with padding. So if I want to create padding left 50 pixels, I just get padding on the left hand side. And if I do padding top 100 pixels, I get padding at the top as well. Padding right 100 pixels. Padding bottom 50 pixels. See, similar to what we had before. I can comment it out and in the same way do it all in one line as before with the margin. Padding, that's 100 pixels at the top. 50 pixels on the right, 100 pixels at the bottom, and 50 pixels on the left. And the same as before, you can just have 3 values, and now the left and the right is taken by the 50 pixels here, or 2 values and the 50 pixels. 100 pixels is taken for top and bottom, and 50 pixels is still taken from left and right. And if you have 100 pixels, then it's 100 pixels all around. I'm going to create another box. Style that. Give it a height of 100 pixels and a width of 100 pixels, and then I'm going to do margin left, and I'm going to set this to auto and set the background color to coral. What do you think will happen when I save it? Is this what you expect to happen? It's gone right across to the right hand side. That's because I put margin left and set it to auto, and when it's set to auto it takes up as much space as possible. If I set margin right now to auto, it centers it, because margin left is taking up as much space on the left hand side for margin, and the right hand side is taking up as much space as possible for margin 2. So it centers the object. I can center the object in another way. I'll delete this, and then I can go margin naught auto, and the box is still centered. This is because the naught is for naught top and bottom, and the auto is for left and right, so you've got auto on left and right, which centers it as before. Right, now I'm just going to comment these two out, so we just have the box 3. So we've just got the box 3 now, and then what I'm going to do now is what people normally think is they can do this: margin top auto naught and margin bottom auto naught, and I expect that the auto will mean the top you'll have margin at the top, and auto bottom will mean you have margin at the bottom, so the box will center. But this doesn't work, as you can see, because what actually happens according to the spec, the CSS spec, when you have auto on for the top and for the bottom, it just goes to naught. So that doesn't work. So going back to what we had before, margin naught auto, to put it in the center, this states explicitly that top and bottom are naught, and the left and right are auto. But since when you set top and bottom to auto, it goes to naught anyway, you can just go auto, and that's the same thing. Right, I'm going to uncomment these. Right, that's got it back to where it was. You'll notice that the boxes appear on different lines automatically. That's because they are block style elements by default. I'm going to create another element. Call it box 4. And box 4, and then I'm going to give it a height 100 px, background color is green. I'm not going to set the width on it. I want to show you what it does with no width set. Color white for the text. You'll notice that it takes up the whole of the screen. That's because it is a block element. These are all block elements. That's why they appear on different lines, because by default they have a line break, and so they appear on different lines. If I want them to appear inline, I'll put some text in here. So call this box 1, this box 2, this one's box 3, and this one's box 4. And then in the styles, I'm going to set each box to display inline. Box 4, display inline. So now all the boxes are in line. But notice that the width and the height have gone. Only box 2, and box 2 has 100 pixels padding. And that's the only reason why it's bigger. So width and height don't work with the display inline. Padding works, but not quite as you expect. Let me show you what happens when I put box 4 back to block. It's as it was before, but now look what's happened to box 2. Box 2 padding is overlapping box 4. Also, if I set margin top 50px, it doesn't work. You don't get any margin. You don't get any margin top and bottom, only left and right margin works. I'm going to set this back to block. And now I've got my 50px margin. You're probably thinking right now that there must be something better than display inline, and there's inline block. I'll set this to inline block. So now it's inline, and I've got my margin and padding and width and height. In conclusion, I would say that display inline should only be used for text where there is no need for margin, padding, width or height. The rest of the time use display inline block, because display inline block was developed after display inline, and so is a more modern display type. The next thing I want to talk about is collapsing margins. I'm going to go back to the HTML page, and I'm going to delete these two boxes. And then I'm going to go to the style sheet, delete those, and go back to here, delete this, delete this, here I'm going to put 100 px and width 100 pixels, square box, and here also height 100 pixels and width 100 pixels. So I've got two square boxes. I'm going to put 50 pixels margin bottom on the first box. That gives me 50 pixel space. And now I'm going to put 50 pixels top on the second box. What do you think will happen when I do that? Margin top 50 pixels. Nothing. It's still 50 pixels. Is that what you expected to happen? Probably what you expected to happen was you'd have 100 pixels, because you'd have 50 pixels from box 2, margin top, and 50 pixels from margin bottom on the first box. But that isn't what's happening. You only get one 50 pixel because of margin collapsing. You can have either margin bottom 50 pixels, I can comment this out, and you have 50 pixels, or can comment out margin bottom and you still have 50 pixels. If you want 100 pixels gap, then you can have margin bottom on the first box as 100 pixels, or you can have margin top on the second box and make that 100 pixels. So that problem with colliding margins is easily solved, but some problems are not so easily solved, as I will show you in the next example. Okay, go back to index.html. I'll delete these two. I create a wrapper div and with a header inside and an h1. This is a title, and here create a p tag and put some lorem ipsum in, like so. As you can see, there's some margin that comes already on the p tag and the h1 tag. Delete this. Right, I'll set some CSS, header, background, color is antique white, and header h1, color brown, font size 50px. Okay, so I want a bit of more spacing between this antique white color and the text. So I'm going to put margin 50px here. Margin 50 pixels. Save that. Oh dear, that didn't quite do what I wanted. It just moved it down a bit, whereas I wanted more of this antique white. What happens if I increase it to 150px? Moves down even further. I know, I'll put some padding on the header. I'll just put 10px. That's not 10 pixels, that's massive. The way around this problem is to set the margin on the h1 to 0, and then the padding on the header will make it 25px. That's better. That's probably enough for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please subscribe for more.